Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if our person combines the roles of our chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station, via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities. Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Welcome and thanks for joining us on Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, and coming to you from MITV here in Lagos. I am Tunde Odeyemi. Today we are discussing key issues for effective meetings of the board and shareholders. And leading the conversation is a distinguished fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, Ms. AYOTOLA JAGUN. AYOTOLA JAGUN is a lawyer with decades of experience at the Nigerian bar and a specialist in corporate law, compliance, corporate governance, risk management. AYOTOLA has spent most of her legal career working across various jurisdictions, including the United Kingdom, Bermuda, and Nigeria. She was called to the Nigerian bar in 1992 and in 2004 obtained an MSc in Corporate and Business Ethics from the University of London. She is a barrister of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, a solicitor of the Supreme Court of England and Wales, and a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. She started her career with Chief Rotimi Williams Chambers, and prior to joining OANDO, she worked as General Counsel and Company Secretary at Capital G Limited, a financial services group based in Bermuda. She is currently the Chief Compliance Officer and Company Secretary at OANDO PLC. AYOTOLA speaks and lectures regularly on anti-corruption and corporate governance at local and international conferences and institutions. Ms. AYOTOLA JAGUN, you are welcome to Corporate Governance Platform.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege.
Okay, we are discussing issues for effective meetings of the board and of course the shareholders. And I'd like to start this conversation by asking you, why is effective board meeting so regarded as important in corporate governance?
So board meetings are very important because the directors of a company are representing the shareholders.
Okay.
The relationship between the shareholders and the management is almost as it were mediated by the directors who have oversight over what the management are doing and then report back to the shareholders. And the only way directors can have that oversight is by regularly having meetings with management to find out exactly what is going on, whether they are managing the company well, whether they are actually deploying the correct strategy of the company, whether they are being profitable. And then every year, those directors, together with management, meet with the shareholders and then explain to the shareholders what the company has done. And that is why board meetings are important. Meetings are important because those meetings have to be effective. They can't be just rubber stamps type of meetings. They have to be meetings that are thorough. They have to be meetings that are well coordinated with a clear agenda as to what is being discussed. They have to cover all the key areas of risk for the business. They have to be not just meetings, they have to be futuristic, meetings that look forward as well to where the company wants to go and make sure that the company is on the right trajectory to being able to reach its ultimate goal. And they also have to ensure that when you're looking, for instance, at the financial statements, you're not just looking at historical performance. You're also wanting to be sure that the company can meet its targets, in order to be able to pay, a dividend and a return that is a healthy return to the shareholders, which is why they invested in the company in the first place.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, what then does the word effective signify in effective board meeting?
So the word effective generally signifies that you're successful in the purpose for which you are doing that particular activity. And so effective board meetings means that the board meetings are successful in being able to achieve the goals of just the corporation. So everybody who sets up a company to be profitable,
sure,
and to make a return for its shareholders. And the meetings and everything the company does has to be effective in being able to realize and achieve that goal. So effective board meetings are board meetings that are, for instance, well run,
okay,
orderly, informative. So information is given to directors in advance of the meeting to ensure that they're able to deliberate. They have the right information to be able to make the right decisions.
Okay.
Because again, decision making is all about having all the facts before you, knowing all the variables, and being able to ensure that you're able to therefore make the right decision that's in the best interest of the shareholders. Effective also means that nobody's able to kind of like capture the board. Management isn't able to kind of control or manipulate what is going on, but they can be properly, the word is not interviewed, but questioned and interrogated by directors to make sure that, again, they are on that right trajectory.
Okay, let's look at it this way. What are the key issues that are crucial to effective board meeting?
So the key issues that are important, for instance, is information flow. Okay. That is primary. And then what's on the agenda? If you have a meeting and the meeting is, for instance, to discuss strategy, and all the things that are on the agenda are non-strategic issues, then you are not actually achieving the purpose for which you have set up that meeting. So the agenda has to cover all the things that are the responsibility of the directors. Risk management is a key responsibility of the directors. And so, again, the agenda has to be able to cover those key areas where directors have responsibility for the shareholders, including strategy, including risk management, including corporate governance, and that they're able to show that they are meeting their responsibilities. They are being accountable, they're being responsible. Also that, those are one of the principles. The other is information.
Okay.
So again, the quality of information that the directors have is very key, so that they're able to, like I said earlier, make the right decisions that are in the best interest of the company.
Okay, what then is the role of the chairman in relations to the board and the shareholders meeting?
Excellent. Very good question. So the chairman is there to direct, to make sure that every member of the board is actually effective as well.
Okay.
That no member of the board is just there and not contributing to what is going on. Also to ensure that where there are diverse views, everybody is able to articulate their views. Nobody's shut down. Every position is taken, it's weighed. That's one of the key aspects of the chairman's role, being there to ensure that there is order in both the directors' meeting and in the shareholders' meeting. Another aspect is to actually set the agenda. So the chairman also sits with the company secretary to set the agenda for the meeting and make sure that the things that need to be covered based on the board plan that would have been developed or designed for the year are actually covered. So things that are critical, even some of the routine things, are done. So every quarter you have for instance, the quarterly financial statements. They're unaudited.
Okay.
It's the chairman's role to make sure that those quarterly meetings take place, and that on the agenda is a review of those financials. So they have to be ready. And they have to be ready on time for the directors to be able to peruse it and ask the right kind of questions that they need to ask. Now, at the shareholders meeting, the chairman again plays a very important role, because then you have diverse shareholders. You have your institutional shareholders, your retail shareholders, your significant shareholders, and at the general meeting, they're all there. Everybody has a voice. Regardless of whether you hold 100 shares or 1 share, or you hold 10 million shares. It's still your company, and so you still have a role to play and a voice. And so the chairman's role is to ensure that there is order, that where there are, for instance, controversial issues to be discussed, that everything is done orderly, and that the agenda is taken, and also to ensure that the shareholders receive the feedback that they should have, that the agenda of the general meeting is followed, the ordinary business is done, but also if there's any special business as well, that it's properly explained to shareholders. Questions also are taken from the different categories of shareholders. They get the answers that they want, and everything goes smoothly.
Wow, fantastic. You spoke extensively on the role of the chairman on board meeting and of course the shareholders meeting, and you also mentioned some of the directors. Now let's look at company secretary.
Yes.
What's the role of the company secretary in relation to effective board meetings and shareholders meeting?
Yeah, so this is where the company secretary, I think, plays a very pivotal role. The company secretary is, in a way, the buffer between management as well and the board, and particularly the management and the chairman. And working closely with the chairman sets the agenda for the meeting. It is up to the company secretary to make sure that the information that is needed for an effective and successful board meeting is provided by management. Now, we talk about management as if it's just one person, but management are different departments. You have your finance team, your HR team, your risk team, and they all have to produce reports. In certain industries, you will have your health and safety team, for instance. And it's ensuring that that information is not just collated and sent in the form of reports, but knowing what is, the company secretary understands what the strategy of the company is, knows what the board plan for the year is, already knows the directors on the board and knows the kind of concerns that they may have. You know the kind of board that you have. You know those board members who are risk averse and who will want detail. And so it's not just enough to compile the board papers and send it out, but to read the board reports as well and to say, is there any information here that is lacking that I believe, knowing the directors, knowing my board, they would want to have? And sending that report back to say, please provide this information, please provide clarity, compiling everything and making sure it gets to the directors on time.
So company secretary's role is also very vital.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to go back to the director, and I'm referring to the Code of Corporate Governance.
Yes.
The code provides that every director should endeavor to attend all board meetings. The attendance record of directors should be among the criteria for the re-election of a director. Now, the question is, why do you think attendance record is among the criteria for the re-election of director?
So every director has a responsibility, under the law.
Yes.
Yes. And so for you to say you are a director, it's actually a very weighty position. And increasingly in these days of corporate governance scandals, it becomes very, very important to look at the conduct of the board meetings and to look at the conduct of each director. Were they really aware of certain things that they should have been aware of? Were they present at the meeting? Are they being effective in their role as directors? If a director doesn't come to board meetings, how are they able to say, and yet they're collecting board fees as well, how are they able to say as well that they have acted as representatives, effective representatives of shareholders? And so it's really important to ensure that the director themselves are engaged in the running of the business, and they are not absentee directors, but they are informed, they are engaged, and they are doing that which they have been appointed, because remember, they are appointed by the shareholders in general meeting to hold office for that period of time. They're doing what they should do. And the records of the meeting, it's not just another role of the company secretary, for instance, to keep the attendance of the meeting, but also to write the minutes of the meeting that reflect the engagement of each of the directors in the business of the day. So whenever there is an issue and you want to kind of know how was the decision reached? You can go back to the minutes and look at the inputs from the different directors and know that, that particular matter was well discussed, it was well debated, and it wasn't a case of, the matter was just called and the directors approved.
Okay, directors' attendance of board meeting is very, very crucial, isn't it? Yes. On that note, we go for a very short break. When we come back, we continue our discussion with Ms. AYOTOLA JAGUN. Please don't go away.
Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if our person combines the roles of our chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station, via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Corporate Governance Platform, coming to you from MITV and proudly sponsored by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. We are discussing key issues for effective meeting of board and shareholders meeting. And I see her with me right here in the studio, Ms. AYOTOLA JAGUN, leading in the conversation. Now, before we went on break, you talked about the importance of the directors coming for meetings, right? I want to move a little bit to shareholders. Now, what is shareholders engagement? And how can meeting be used for effective shareholders engagement?
Thank you very much for that question. Shareholders engagement is key. It's not just at the annual general meeting that you should be engaging with your shareholders.
Okay.
You should be engaging with your shareholders throughout the year and in different ways. So shareholders engagement is really dialoguing and communications between the owners of the company, because they are owners, they have bought shares in the company, and the management of the company, again through the intermediary of the board. In some cases, and in other cases, it's directly with management. And like I said, there are different ways in which you can communicate with shareholders. You can have analyst calls every quarter. When you release your financial statements, you have the calls. You basically give them a summary of how you are doing. It's like a point in time view of this is where the company is going, based on the projections. And so the shareholders are able to see whether the company is trending in the right direction. And if there are any issues, that's a time to actually discuss those issues, so that at the AGM, you're well prepared, there are no surprises, right? Also, newsletters are another way to engage your shareholders from time to time, to let them know these are the activities of the company, or we've launched a new product, or we've built a new factory. It's another way of letting them see what their company is doing. Engaging with them also through the platform of the corporate sustainability report. This is how your company is impacting its community. These are the things that we're doing to make society better, to build a better nation. That's another way of engaging shareholders.
So in a short way, apart from having an annual general meeting, there are other various ways of engaging with the shareholders. Okay, what are the advantages that are accruable for when we have effective shareholders meeting in the realm of corporate governance?
So you're carrying your shareholders along throughout the year, so that when you now get to the AGM, the meeting is actually effective, because there's knowledge. They know, they come forearmed with knowledge about what the company is doing. So when it goes smoothly, the AGM actually goes smoother when you've had that prior engagement. And that's why in the past, you would see a lot of companies having the pre-AGM. The reason why they have the pre-AGM is so that they can meet with shareholders, and if there are any issues, any questions they have, the management can respond to them, but if they don't have the answers straight away, they go back and make sure that overnight they have those answers, so that at the AGM, when the CEO is giving his speech or the chairman is giving, they have addressed those issues, so they're not necessarily having to be taken from the floor. The management is already aware of how the shareholder thinks. Now, another way of dealing with this, again, is embedded in law under CAMA, under the NCCG as well, is to encourage shareholders, and for public companies under the NSE listing rules, the Nigerian Exchange rules, is to encourage shareholders to send in their questions ahead of the general meeting. Okay. And so in the notice of the AGM, in the annual report, you would actually, that you send to shareholders before the meeting, 21 days if there is no special business, 28 days if there is, you would then have a page that, somewhere in the notice that says, please send in your questions to an email address or, to the postal address ahead of the general meeting. Again, if you're not able to attend the general meeting, because, for instance, if you're a shareholder in Kano or Kaduna or Borno or, Adamawa, and the general meeting is in Lagos, you can have your questions come in and they can be factored in to the CEO's speech. They can be factored in, they can be responded to. Okay.
Now, let me take you up on the pre-AGM.
Yes.
Do you think that the recent prohibition, you are aware of the prohibition of pre-AGM with shareholders, do you think this is contrary to the principles of shareholders' engagement?
So there was a concern, and I think we need to look at what the concern was. There was a concern from the regulator, the SEC in this case, that shareholders were being bought by companies having the AGM with a select few. Okay. Now, know that at the pre-AGM, it's not open to all shareholders.
It's not publicized.
It's not publicized. It's by pre-invitation. Normally, it's the shareholder associations,
okay,
who are invited to come. And again, like I said, from the company's point of view, it's an opportunity to get them to air their views, air their concerns, meet with them before the AGM, and then at the AGM, because with the AGM, you have limited time to take questions. If you were to take everybody's question and you haven't kind of like had the pre-AGM, the AGM would actually be much longer than it is. So the context was always, let's engage with them prior to the meeting in an informal manner, get all their concerns, and then make sure that the AGM itself is more effective. The concern from the regulator, based on, I guess, also on some evidence that they had received, was that it was being used by companies, by some companies, to manipulate the results at the AGM. And that was why not only did they clamp down hard on the pre-AGM, but they also had some regulations or rules regarding gifts and hospitality that could be given to shareholders as well at the pre-AGM, and also at the AGM. So no monetary gifts at all. No, even if you were...
Okay, the prohibition on pre-AGM, will it have adverse effects on shareholders' engagement?
Not necessarily. So it's up to, fortunately, COVID has dealt with that for us and has helped resolve that.
Okay.
In the sense that, we haven't been able to have AGMs where you have 1,000 shareholders present. Again, it depends on, your shareholder register, how many shareholders you have. Because of that, the CAC had to come up with new regulations that allow for AGMs by proxy. And so you can't, because of COVID restrictions, you can't have more than 25 or so shareholders present together. By the time you count the directors and some other support staff, you've already got your 50.
Exactly.
So that kind of it's amazing how it came very, very soon after the prohibition by SEC. And so the situation now is that it's been proven that you don't have to have those large AGMs anymore. And we're moving now towards the situation in the UK, in the US, in the West, where they may have a huge register, but very few people have to attend. In fact, they have virtual AGMs. So now we're moving towards a new era of virtual AGMs or hybrid AGMs, as the case may be.
Okay, will you say that the practice of shareholders engagement has reached the desired level in corporate Nigeria?
No, I don't believe that it has. I think that we can engage more.
Okay.
Now, but the question is, how do we engage? So, like I said, COVID has meant that we've had to find innovative ways of engaging with our shareholders. There's the company's website, of course, but there's also the newsletters. There are, perhaps we'll design applications, apps that, shareholders can download, and they can navigate and see how the company is doing day by day, or important news that has happened, besides having to rely on social media. So that we just have to be very innovative as to how we engage and how often we engage with shareholders.
Okay, let me ask you just few questions before our time runs out. Accurate keeping of board meetings, board minutes of the board meetings, and safekeeping is recommended by the code, right?
Yes.
Now, do you think chartered secretaryship profession prepares one for the task of minutes writing and record keeping?
Yes, I think it does, but ultimately you have to adapt your minute-taking style to what your board prefers.
Okay.
Some boards prefer copious records, detailed records, who said what. Other boards say, that's not important. We are more concerned about the decision and the fact that the resolutions and the fact that a debate was actually had. You don't have to go into too much detail. So again, one is guided by one's board, although the best practice is that minutes shouldn't go to reams and reams and reams of pages. Yeah.
And finally, what is your advice to companies that are interested in having effective and efficient board meetings and shareholders meetings?
I think there are two things I want to just add in closing. We've seen some developments in North America with ExxonMobil, where they had one of their hedge fund activist shareholders actually was successful in removing 3 of the directors at an AGM because they felt that the board were not paying attention. Board and management were not paying attention to enough attention or sufficient attention to climate change issues. We have the situation with Boeing, where Boeing shareholders took the company to court because they were displeased with their safety records and the emphasis they were playing on safety. So we're seeing a different kind of shareholder activism that's more than just picketing and the AGM and shouting at the AGM. That's more proactive. And so I would say it's very, very important for companies to engage regularly with shareholders, feel the pulse of the nation, feel the pulse of the shareholders, and be able to anticipate and meet their needs.
Okay, thank you very much. It's important for the company to engage regularly with the shareholder. This is where we wrap it up. I want to thank you for coming on the show, AYOTOLA JAGUN. And for our viewers, thank you very much for watching. Please join us again next week, same station, same time. I remain Tunde Odeyemi. Bye for now.
Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Would there be any conflict of interest if our person combines the roles of our chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station, via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.